even as it is reaching out to make a much wider impact in the world. जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा, हम भारत की विरासत से आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा लेते आ रहे हैं, पर जब देश इतना बड़ा हो, इतनी विविधता हो, इतनी डाइवर्सिटी हो उसमें, तो ये निश्चित है कि प्रत्येक क्षेत्र के इतिहास को कई लोग अलग-अलग तरह से समझते हैं. And of course, what is factual history and what is a myth remains an unending hot topic of debate. Our next speaker is someone who has helped us navigate this very important difference. He has been able to crystallize ideas from ancient mythology and adapted them as mantras to live by in the modern India of today. Please put your hands together for mythologist, author and illustrator Devdutt Pattanaik.
Do I use this or this? Hi, my name is Devdutt Pattanaik and I write on mythology. So, one of the things I observe is people do not distinguish between science and science fiction, history and historical fiction, mythology and mythological fiction. So, let me give you an example. DNA is science, but Jurassic Park, the film, is science fiction. That there was a Hyderabad Nizam state where there were Gonds who rebelled against authorities is history. RRR is historical fiction. Bahubali is fantasy. It has nothing to do with history, it's just pure wonderful fantasy. Then comes mythology and mythological fiction. So if you read stories from the Bible, that's mythology. But when you read Dan Brown and Da Vinci Code, that's mythological fiction. So I'm often asked, लोग मुझे पूछते रहते हैं, and I go to all these conferences that for the last 20 years I've been asked this question कि Devdutt, लोग हिंदुइज्म को mythology क्यों बोलते हैं, इस्लाम क्रिश्चियनिटी को mythology क्यों नहीं बोलते? And the problem is वो Google कभी नहीं खोलते हैं. You open Google, आपके पास phone है, Wi-Fi है, do a Google and search for Islamic mythology. You will get lots of articles on Islamic mythology. Do a Google search, Christian mythology, मिल जाएगा आपको. So प्रश्न पूछने के पहले Google भी नहीं करते कि भैया every religious idea, every ideology is based on mythology. So there is Islamic mythology, Hindu mythology, Buddhist mythology, Jain mythology. There is even secular mythology, Marxist mythology. Because what is mythology then becomes the question. I was seeing this title, The Epic Stories, Why Our Myths Are Still Alive. आप इसे हिंदी में अनुवाद करके दिखाइए मुझे. इसको हिंदी में कैसे अनुवाद करेंगे? और शब्द नहीं मिलेंगे आपको. It's like अगर मैं यहां पे लिखूं Hitler was evil. Hitler was evil simple English sentence है. अगर मैं कहूं आपको इसे हिंदी में अनुवाद कीजिए, evil को हिंदी में अनुवाद करके दिखाइए. evil शब्द का हिंदी अनुवाद नहीं मिलेगा आपको. कोशिश कीजिए, 20 साल से 25 साल से लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं, नहीं मिलता है आपको, लेकिन maybe you will find it right now. The thing is because these words come from different cultural spaces. So since I have a few minutes, I'll explain definitions. So definition के बारे में. तो उस दिन again the same gentleman जो हमेशा वो कहते हैं कि हिंदुइज्म को mythology क्यों बोला जाता है, उन्होंने कहा कि mythology शब्द देवदत्त मिथ्या से आता है. हमारे यहां शब्द है मिथ्या, जिसे झूठ बोला जाता है. तो मैंने कहा कि अच्छा वापस गूगल खोलो, go to the etymology of mythology. और उसने etymology तो उसे मतलब निरुक्त etymology. So you went to etymology और वहां पे उसने देखा कि mythology शब्द comes from a Greek word which means mythos, which means storytelling. That's it. So mythology is about stories, but a particular kind of stories. So let me explain the definition of these words so that you will all understand. Fact is everybody's truth. A fact is everybody's truth. It begins with doubt and ends with measurement or evidence. That's how a fact is defined. It is everybody's truth. It will begin with doubt. It will end with measurement or evidence. Fiction is nobody's truth. किसी का सच नहीं है. तो fact सबका सच है, fiction किसी का सच नहीं है. Myth is somebody's truth. किसी का सच. तो कुछ लोग भगवान के ऊपर विश्वास करते हैं, वो उनका सच है. जो भगवान पे विश्वास नहीं करते उनका सच नहीं है। कुछ शैतान पे विश्वास करते हैं, कुछ जन्नत में विश्वास करते हैं, कुछ पुनर्जन्म में विश्वास करते हैं। कुछ लोग कहते हैं मुझे भगवान पे विश्वास, मुझे न्याय पे विश्वास है। न्याय भी मिथोलॉजी है, क्योंकि इट इज अ बिलीफ। नेचर में, प्रकृति में देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज जस्टिस। इन नेचर देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज इक्वालिटी। इक्वालिटी इज अ बिलीफ सिस्टम, जस्टिस इज अ बिलीफ सिस्टम, rights, human rights are a belief system. All this is mythology. So mythology is the study of polytheistic mythology, monotheistic mythology, atheistic mythology. Atheistic mythology, that is where jahan nirishwarvad, jahan there bhagwan nahi hote hain. In Jainism there is no concept of God, there is no one God, but there are minor gods. So when you study mythology, you have to see these three things. You know, what is your belief system? Now, why is mythology important? Why is mythology important? जब आप विश्वास करते हो कि एक ही सच होता है दुनिया में, फिर आप विवाद करते हो। विवाद होता है, आई एम राइट, यू आर राइट, आई एम राइट, यू आर राइट, मैं सच बोल रहा हूं, तुम झूठ बोल रहे हो। इसलिए वो न्यायाधीश के सामने लोग लड़ाई करते रहते हैं, पार्लियामेंट में लोग लड़ाई करते रहते हैं, घर में लड़ाई करते हैं, बिकॉज वी बिलीव माई ट्रूथ इज द ट्रूथ। In this room, there are 50, 100 people, there are 50, 100 truths based on your own personal experiences, your own personal knowledge, that's your belief system. If I get into the conversation saying कि देखो किसी का सच परम सत्य नहीं होता है, मेरे पास कुछ सच है, तुम्हारे पास कुछ सच है, चलो संवाद करते हैं, तो विवाद नहीं संवाद करते हैं। So mythology allows you to have conversations, because at the end of the conversation मेरा सच थोड़ा बढ़ता है। जो मेरे कमरे के आने के पहले जो सच था वो बदल गया है, it has changed, I have expanded my truth। तो मैं सुनता हूं, because मुझे पता है कि मेरे पास सच नहीं है, सब पूर्ण सत्य नहीं है। You know, आदि शंकराचार्य ने कहा था कि जगत मिथ्या ब्रह्म सत्यम। इसका सिंपल अनुवाद क्या है? हर आदमी के पास सीमित सच होता है, लिमिटेड ट्रूथ्स। वी ऑल हैव लिमिटेड ट्रूथ्स। ईच वन ऑफ अस हैज लिमिटेड ट्रूथ्स। नोबडी हैज एक्सेस टू द लिमिटलेस ट्रूथ। ओनली द डिवाइन हैज एक्सेस टू लिमिटलेस ट्रूथ्स। हाउ डू आई मूव फ्रॉम लिमिटेड ट्रूथ टू लिमिटलेस ट्रूथ्स? इज बाय हैविंग कॉन्वर्सेशंस, संवाद करके, बात करके। जब मैं बात करता हूं, लोगों की बात सुनता हूं, चिल्लाता नहीं, सुनता हूं बातें। जब मैं संवाद करता हूं, जब मैं उपनिषद करता हूं, तब मेरा सच खुलता है, उभरता है, एंड आई लर्न न्यू थिंग्स। अहंकार को पसंद नहीं है ये बातें। अहंकार कहता है कि मेरा सच ही सच है, द ट्रूथ। सो इन इंग्लिश व्हेन आई राइट द वर्ड द ट्रूथ, द इज अ डेफिनेट आर्टिकल। यू कांट ट्रांसलेट दिस इन हिंदी or in any Indian languages. The truth, capital letter T, you cannot write in Hindi. There is no concept of capital letters. So you can't translate evil, you can't translate myth. अभी मुझे लोग बोलते हैं कि there's a myth, को हिंदी में क्या बोलेंगे? आख्यान बोलूं, क्या बोलूं? इतिहास बोलूं? तो these are very loaded words. विश्वास वाला सच is mythology. विज्ञान वाला सच और विश्वास वाले सच में अंतर होता है। विज्ञान वाले सच में शंका होती है, डाउट। इसलिए शंका से जो काम करता है वो वैज्ञानिक होता है। जो विश्वास से काम करता है, जो गुरु की बात मानता है, वो वैज्ञानिक नहीं हो सकता। ही कांट बी अ साइंटिस्ट। साइंस इज अबाउट डाउट, शंका। देयर इज ऑलवेज चेंजिंग, एंड दैट इज हाउ यू अंडरस्टैंड मिथ्स। सो व्हेन समबडी आस्क्स मी व्हाई आर मिथ्स स्टिल अलाइव, दे आर अलाइव बिकॉज वी नीड मिथ्स। हमें विश्वास वाले सच चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर विश्वास वाले सच नहीं होते तो हम पागल हो जाएंगे। विश्वास से ही दुनिया कायम है, विज्ञान से नहीं। विज्ञान आपको सेलफोन दे सकता है, विज्ञान आपको ये स्टेज दे सकता है, शांति नहीं दे सकती है, संतोष नहीं दे सकता है। विज्ञान से संतोष प्राप्ति नहीं होगी। Science, technology, engineering, mathematics will give you great material benefits. We will have lots of wealth, lots of power. But I have met rich people. I don't see them as happy. I meet powerful people, I don't see them as happy. They're all unhappy, discontented, frustrated. You know, the best experience in my life is sitting in a private jet with a very rich man who said, life is very unfair. And I agreed with him because my invoice was on his table. So with that, that's my little bit about what is mythology, and I hope you take it home with you. Thank you so much.
थैंक यू वेरी मच देवदत्त जी. जैसा आपने समझाया, विश्वास वाला सच और विज्ञान वाला सच अलग होता है, और थोड़ा और इसे समझना चाहते हैं. आई वुड लाइक टू इनवाइट ऑन स्टेज Gul Panag once more to take this discussion forward with Devdutt Pattanaik. A big round of applause, please.
Well, to begin with, I think a lot of my concepts were cleared when you addressed us, and I think going to the root of the word, the etymology, the definition, helped in my head as well break down the difference between science, science fiction, mythology, mythological fiction, historical fiction. And there's a lot of congruence in common parlance over historical fiction, mythological fiction, myth, and of course, which brings me to my first question. Do you think that the difference, or rather the distinction between mythologists and historians is beginning to blur, and in the present context?
You see, who are we talking about? Scholars know the difference. जो पंडित होते हैं उनको समझ में आता है कि देखो, the Saraswati is associated with a swan, हंस के साथ जुड़ी होती है. And a swan, mythological swan, is able to separate milk from water. दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी. इसलिए हम सरस्वती के हंस की पूजा करते हैं. जो हंस होते हैं उनको फर्क पता है कि ये हिस्टोरियन है, ये मिथोलॉजिस्ट है, ये फिक्शन राइटर है, ये पॉलिटिशियन है जो सर्वज्ञानी होता है. तो so you should accept that. तो once you know your definitions, so जो हंस होते हैं उनको समझ में आता है कि देखो ये ऐसे है, इसको संख्या कहते हैं, where you divide things. But सब लोग हंस नहीं हो सकते. कर्म के हिसाब से आप हंस हो या ना हो. जो हंस, तो मैं पहले देखता हूं ये आदमी हंस है या नहीं है. अगर हंस है तो उसे समझ में आता है कि what is the difference between these words. And sometimes you meet people who think fiction writers are historians, are mythologists, तो उनके साथ आपको अलग व्यवहार करना है. थोड़ा प्रेम के साथ, थोड़ा you have to be loving, because उनको समझ नहीं आता है ना, उनको आलू और प्याज में फर्क नहीं पता चलता है. तो मैं क्या करूं, तो उनको समझाना पड़ता है कि दे आर वेजिटेबल्स, ये मांसाहारी खाना नहीं है. दे डोंट नो द डिफरेंस बिटवीन tomatoes and potatoes. So we have to work with them, we have to be kind, because they don't understand the difference. And I don't get angry. I mean, I used to get angry, but then I calmed down and I realized that why should I be angry with stupid people?
पर जो परिभाषा है एक मूर्ख व्यक्ति की, अगर उस पे हम एक मिनट के लिए चर्चा करें
जी,
ये अगर उसकी जो एटिमोलॉजी है और जो उसकी परिभाषा है जिससे आपने अभी बताया, द फूलिश पीपल, वो मूर्ख व्यक्ति की अगर आप एक परिभाषा बताना चाहें, वो क्या होगी? वो आज के दृष्टिकोण से.
पहले तो वो व्हाट्सएप को विश्वास करता है.
आप एक मिनट, मेरा पहला सवाल, क्या आप ये कहना चाहते हैं कि हमें व्हाट्सएप पर विश्वास नहीं करना चाहिए?
वो ज्ञान का केवल एक स्तोत्र है,
और वो ज्ञान का,
हर चीज ज्ञान का स्तोत्र है. यू विल गेट नॉलेज एवरीवेयर. I listen to politicians all the time, and the politicians taught me you don't have to reply to all questions. So that was a big learning. I thought whenever somebody asks you questions, you have to reply.
But what if you're not allowed to ask questions?
That's also okay.
But what would that be? I mean, how would you describe that?
question नहीं पूछते हमारे यहाँ. उसको हम बोलेंगे कि आज्ञाकारी पुत्र है, वो कभी बड़ों से प्रश्न, तुम बड़ों से प्रश्न पूछना इज डिसरिस्पेक्टफुल.
आज्ञाकारी पुत्र होना वो हमारी सभ्यता का एक बहुत बड़ा
very important in the military. In a military, we cannot expect a soldier to challenge the authority, because then we will not win a war. If you believe life ही रणभूमि है, तो उनको सिर्फ सेना पसंद है.
और लोकतंत्र
में
उसमें सवाल जायज़ है या नहीं है, क्या वो सेना है, क्या वो मिलिट्री है? मतलब मैं एक जनरल की बेटी हूँ, मुझे कोई सवाल पूछने की कभी अनुमति नहीं थी मेरे घर में, तो मैं उससे काफ़ी अच्छे तरीके से वाकिफ़ हूँ। पर आप बताइए कि जहाँ तक कि सवालों की बात की जाए, हम लोकतंत्र में सवाल की क्या?
See, it's about, are we asking questions to create a better society, or are we asking? See, what has happened today in democracy is that, look at what has happened in the global West. Democracy.
Wouldn't democracy be a myth? It's a belief system.
It's a belief system. Of course, it is a belief system. It is like autocracy is a belief system. Democracy is a belief system. I believe that 10, 100 people, when we get together, can discuss and find a solution. It's a belief. You don't find democracy in nature. It's a cultural phenomena. So Rome was not based on democracy. The Chinese empires were not based on democracy. Islam was not based on democracy. The Islamic Caliphate was not based on democracy. Raj Mandalas were not based on democracy. So democracy is an idea where you believe that everybody's truth is valid and I can have a conversation. In Jains, there's a concept of Anekantvad. So you believe there are multiple truths and we can engage. So unless you do Samvad, now look at what happens in parliament. We are doing Vivad. If you're doing Vivad, you will never succeed. It is Samvad. You have to converse, get people together, not divide people. Democracy is about getting people together. You ask anyone on the road, what is the meaning of a leader? He says, jo sabko saath leke jata hai.
So that means you're endorsing Bharat Jodo technically because you're against Bharat division.
No, that is Jumla.
That was a joke.
No, those are facetious statements because anybody can put a poster, right? I can put a poster saying that I'm an honest man, I'm uniting the country. These are statements nowadays, anybody can tweet anything, you know. And so, do you live it? Do you genuinely live it? See, bolna आसान है, करना बहुत मुश्किल है. Bhagavad Gita, anybody can chant on a stage, but to live Bhagavad Gita is a challenge. It's extremely difficult. बोलना बहुत आसान है कि मैंने भगवद गीता का लेक्चर दे दिया. I know so many people who genuinely believe in generosity until you ask them for money. They'll give you speeches on what is the value of charity, and they'll be called to Davos, and they'll get a standing ovation. But then you check, and you realize they don't like to pay taxes. They don't believe taxes are also charity. Because the money that you give in taxes, the state will use to help so many people.
It's because they believe democracy is not there in nature. So why should my taxes facilitate somebody else going by your line of thought?
Yes, but
that's what the rich people don't want to share money.
Yeah, the greatest mythology in the world is this is mine.
Right. Okay, I want to go back. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. I do want to...
You see, this idea of property, the idea of this is mine. Tribal societies have collective wealth. Human societies have private wealth. In the Mahabharata, Draupadi asked the question, am I a property that you can gamble me away? Is woman a property? So, this is a fundamental question. ये मेरा है, ये मेरा शब्द सबसे बड़ी मिथ्या है.
पर ये तो हमारे बहुत से पुराने कानूनों में लिखा हुआ है. The English justice system treats a woman as property of her husband, and that's how laws are written. But I want to go back to the subject that we were at. I mean, this could go on forever, and I hope that you'll give me an opportunity to continue this off the stage. Is our history and mythology in danger of being politicized? And which is the question of the hour? And is conspiracy likely, or has conspiracy, or will it replace facts?
No, everybody feels in their life the world is coming to an end. Even 3,000 years ago, in the cuneiform script in Mesopotamia, you have got these little letters written by people that the children are now riding chariots. They don't listen to their parents. The world is coming to an end. So everybody believes their lifetime is an interesting period and everything is going to collapse in my lifetime. Nothing happens. The world carries on. The rich will continue to be greedy. Vegetarianism will impact the way you collect wealth. So these kind of ideas, which you have, everybody believes that if everybody in this world was vegetarian, we would be a better place. If everybody in the world believed in Jesus, the world would be a better place. If everybody in the world believed in my religion, the world would be a better place. We call them control freaks. And they'll always be there. This is Sanatan. This won't change. We would like to believe that the world will become a better place, but that's the greatest fairy tale in the world, happily ever after. Everybody knows that when, Disney's True Love, what happens after marriage, right? So just ask the married people over here, they all look so unhappy. They all believed in those wonderful weddings, hum saath saath rahenge. And then you go to the divorce court and see how many young couples are there tweeting each other, saying the next.
Speaking of Twitter, you have an infinite amount of patience to conduct discourse with people who disagree with you. And आपने इससे पहले भी बात की कि संवाद का कितना महत्व है हमारे आज के ज़माने में. How do you find and dig deep that level of patience that requires you to engage with people who are close-minded and, the ones you perhaps refer to as foolish people at the early part of our conversation?
Everyone. So you can't talk to, I have no desire to be some great person who's going to change the world. I talk to people who understand. So you have 24 hours in a day and you have to ration your time very carefully. So I decide, if I meet a person and I realize he's decided what the truth is, I agree with them.
What if you can change their mind with reason?
That's not my... I check whether he's going to pay me money. So I'm very clear. See, either you have to be rich, or you have to be genuinely interested in the subject, or you have to be good looking. These are the three criteria for me to indulge you.
Noted. Okay. I want to talk about a fairly controversial thought. Controversial probably from your perspective only, for the purpose of this conversation. That we've always spoken of an idea of an India that is diverse, the diversity of India. And yet, there is a narrative that's gaining significant traction, which talks about the uniformity of India. Do you want to talk a bit about how the diversity of India versus the uniformity of India, and how narratives are built and perpetuated through mythologists turned historians?
See, diversity generally is inefficient. And it's a fact. For example, if there are 10 people in the house who want to eat 10 different kinds of food, managing the kitchen is a nightmare. So it's efficient if everyone eats the same kind of food. So if you are the cook and you'll say, I'm going to make poha today, then it's easy, everybody eats poha. But if everybody says, I want a poha, upma, idli, omelette, then the kitchen becomes inefficient. So diversity by definition is inefficient. Diversity also lends itself to create hierarchies. So all diverse societies, so India has a caste system. One of the reasons is because of its diversity. And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons. So diversity plays a role. Now the problem with uniformity and homogeneity is efficient, yes, it's more flatter, equal, but what it does, it homogenizes. It takes away difference. So everybody has to speak Hindi. Everybody has to be vegetarian.
You say it like it's a bad thing. Speaking Hindi.
Talk to the Tamilian and ask them if will you give up their language.
And what did they say when you asked them?
They don't want to give up their language. Unless we decide to teach Tamil in the Gangetic Plains. Maybe Uttar Pradesh.
That would be a really good idea.
See, the question is how many languages do you want to learn? Why will you not learn?
1 to 10 in Tamil.
Can you do that in Odia?
No, I can't, but I'd love to.
Yes. And Bengali?
No.
And Assamese? And Marathi? And Gujarati?
Now you're calling me out. That's not cool.
Exactly. So the problem with diversity is it puts this pressure on you. And I use in global forums, I use the Indian rupee note to show them the number of languages we have in India. And then I show a US dollar bill and say, you have only one language, maybe two, Latin. And that creates efficiency. However, it cannot handle immigrants. Instantly, they will say that Mexico mein wall bana do, we don't like Muslims in our neighborhood. And therefore, you see the West, which loves homogeneity and therefore equality, can't handle diversity. India, which is diverse and therefore inefficient, can handle complexity much more, but
we want to be like that dollar bill that only has one language. Is that what you're saying?
Which is what people think is good for them until their language is threatened. Until their language. The moment I threaten, the moment, see 50% of India is in the Hindi-speaking belt and therefore Hindi is given a priority. Therefore politicians love Hindi. Therefore I speak Hindi on stage. 50% of India. The fact is the remaining 50% also matters. Odia matters,
Not to win an
Bengali
election,
matters.
surely.
Sorry?
But not to win an election, surely.
If you become a politician, you might change your tune and you might just talk a very different language.
So you're saying that a politician must cater to 100% of the electorate?
Of his electorate,
That's preposterous.
no, 37%.
That doesn't happen.
It works for 30%. You don't need to convince everybody. You have to convince a significant number of people to get the maximum. It's a majoritarian representative democracy. It's not a democracy in theory. It is about just getting those 30% of people to vote for you and you're all powerful. You don't need 100% of people to support you. You need 30% of the people.
And then if you bring back the language conversation to that thought, then if you have, say, 30-35% people who do support your thought, what stops you from imposing a uniform language and imposing uniformity in general, including but not limited to language?
You can impose it. China does it. In China, everybody is supposed to speak the Chinese language. And they have a Great Wall of China. They have now the Firewall of China. And they don't let foreigners enter. I remember talking to Chinese audience and asking them, you want to control the world, right? And they said, yes. I said, which language? And they said, Chinese. And I said, that won't work.
But
the British
China
tried
is
to
often,
do it with English.
you know, here's the interesting thing. China is often quoted as the pinnacle of economic might. And you think that's because of the uniformity that has been imposed?
Look at how China deals with rich people. You know, there was a guy called Jack Ma who was very rich and very powerful. He's disappeared. So if you want to be like China, then the rich people in India should be told the story of Jack Ma. So be careful of the Chinese model, because Jack Ma, the story, I mean, I don't know where he is. I mean, he was this big, he was there on Twitter everywhere, he was there
He vocalized his retirement.
And then one day he disappeared. So Chinese model is also the story of Jack Ma. It's also the Great Wall. It's also the Firewall. It's also the economic success. So you have to listen to many stories. Diverse stories of China, not just one story. Be careful of a single story. When people talk of one God, one life, one way of thinking, that's monotheism. Polytheism is many gods, many languages, many ways of thinking. India is polytheistic. India will fight back monotheism. So monotheism will always be challenged by polytheism. Socialism and all are atheists. So they don't believe in anything is sacred. Capitalism is atheist. It doesn't believe anything is sacred. But polytheism is many things are sacred. Will never let a monotheistic faith come in. And democracy today, unfortunately, is moving towards monotheistic ideals. And therefore, it only divides the world into left and right.
But isn't that more efficient?
And that leads to the Crusades. The Crusades were the battle between one monotheistic group, which was efficient, the Christians, and another monotheistic group, which was the Muslims, fighting each other. And the Chinese didn't even involve themselves. So yeah, you want monotheism, you'll get Crusades. Take your pick.
But short-term gains versus long-term harakiri, potentially?
No, that happens in life. You know, we know what happens. You know, you can be rich, the second richest man in the world, and then world changes. So everything comes and goes. This is what the Jainism teaches us, you know. Utasarpini, avasarpini, utasarpini, avasarpini, sushama, dushama, sushama, dushama. Good times,
I have no idea
bad
what
times.
language that is.
Well, that's Ardhamagadi. So, but it's Jain philosophy that nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. And the wise men watch people assume that they will conquer the world and realize that nothing really matters in the end. And what you claim is yours is not yours.
Fascinating. I have one last question and we're almost out of time, which is, you know, speaking of diversity, and you know, we've established that diversity is not efficient, but nor is uniformity, because that leads to the Crusades. Eventually, we may not be here to witness the Crusades, but we may certainly sow the seeds of it. And that is, will we have to wait for more Punniyin Selvins and Kantaras to appreciate the diversity of history in popular culture? And that is my last question. Yeah. And we are out of time, so.
Yeah, Ponniyin Selvan is a historical fiction. Kantara calls itself a legend. The title calls itself a legend. It's based on a Dakshin Kannada folk ritual, but deals with untouchability, land rights, property rights, very real popular issues, land rights, property rights. You know, caste is a major theme in Kantara, which nobody wants to talk about. But one of the biggest themes in Kantara is caste, land rights, forest encroachment. But everybody's focusing on, but they're forgetting what the god is saying. The god is saying, leave the forests alone. And most of the people who support Kantara are the ones who want the forests to be destroyed. So just going to the temple doesn't make you a bhakt. Is something I always tell people. भगवत गीता पढ़ने से आपको मोक्ष प्राप्त नहीं होती है, काम करना पड़ता है। तो
You have to live the life, not just
live the
espouse
life.
it.
See, to talk about generosity is easy. To be generous is very tough. To write about love is very easy. To be loving is very tough.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for such profound thoughts. And I think there isn't a person in this room who's not going to go back and question themselves, hopefully. And you know, maybe stare themselves in the mirror and say maybe they got a few things off.
I think just, you know, ABP has been kind enough to get some of my books. They are available by the grace of ABP, so it's free. So if you like my work, do read my books.
I'm grateful that you've already gifted me one, but all of you can have a book.
Yeah.
And please do contact people outside. They will guide you to it. I can't wait to start reading mine. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.